free. Chains far too strong to be broken. Salvation in the forging of the key. All his strength was spent as enemies drew near. King Laser knew not how to win that day. Prometheus could make the sacred key with living fire and royal cosmic flame. From the sacrifice of heroes, the tree of freedom grows. Where this courage comes from, only heaven knows. When enemies encircle and evil brings them down, heroes do what must be done to win the blessed crown. Listen, give his life for his people. Prometheus took the fiery flame. As a man, he wielded sword and shield. But as a god, he slowed in his way. Prometheus redeemed his visions. Until he stole his energy and light, restoring him as I had told the eagle. Redemption and nobility in flight. From the sacrifice of heroes, the tree of freedom grows. Where this courage comes from, only heaven knows. When enemies encircle and evil brings them down, heroes do what must be done to win the blessed crown. Heroic sacrifice, heroic sacrifice.
And we are rolling in, a little roll in going free tonight. How's everybody doing? A very interesting topic tonight. And we have even asked the magic window to give us a look at outer space, just in case a UFO decides to fly by during our roll in going free. How's everybody doing? Can you hear me okay? Is the audio coming through? Wonderful. Caleb is here with an 07. A salute to you as well. Artificer, Western kind is life. And there is the dear, sweet Ladybug. How are you, Kate? And who else do we have with us? No White Gill Clips, of course. Biospirit of the West. True Champions. Great to see you all. What do you think about this talk about aliens? I see Battle Cat over there on D Live. EXO, is that what that says? Hello to you all. Summerlee over on Odyssey. Popcorn Power as well. Fantastic to see everybody. Crazy news. Why aren't we hearing more about these aliens? Naderific is here. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. It says nice tie. Sound check. Artificer, thank you so much for that. Windex is your sound is good. Thank you so much. Good brother. Well, let me make sure it's all of our. We working on all of our platforms. It looks like it. How did you like that? That is song number 8 of Luke Mason's. Just made that. Imminent Rain. And that, of course, is his album in which he's telling the story of Prometheus Rising, Take Back Your Destiny. And you can get the book at Amazon. You can also get it at nowhiteguildcollectibles.com. You can also, do we have the link for those who want to purchase the song from Luke? We should get that. Maybe he'll show up and give it to us. It is a killer song. It's really awesome. The guy's unbelievably talented. I want everybody to participate who has any thoughts on aliens. Has anybody ever seen an alien? Don't say yes. Please don't. Biospirit of the West says, will the aliens be white positive? Damn right, because they're going to be evolved. And when you get evolved, we realize that when you become increasingly evolved as a life form, intelligence and creativity, you just become white positive quite naturally. And so they all will be white positive. Tom is here with a little alien face. But I don't know. There's some interesting. Oh, you know what I want? I made myself some notes, and I will want those. So let me grab those. Has anybody ever? Do you have family members who think that they have seen something, a UFO, and which is just a unidentified flying object? Doesn't necessarily mean it is piloted by little frog people, but has anybody ever seen a UFO or think they have or had a family member that has? What would they be here for? Why is the government talking about UFOs now? Is anybody asking that? Is this kind of a strange thing that's happening right now? If I could just rope you in and get your attention here is this kind of a strange thing? The government of the United States, about, what was it, like 8 months ago? No, it's more than that. It's almost a year ago now, I think, began holding these hearings. These were the preliminary hearings from this money that's been put aside for a committee to study, to identify all of the cases of UFOs, although they've given them a new name now, unidentified aerial phenomena. And that's just because of the baggage associated with UFO. Can I touch this? She always says yes. But let me grab this. Pretty weird that the government, United States government, starts talking about this and showing footage from fighter jets. I think there was footage captured outside of Virginia Beach area somewhere roughly. And then, of course, you had the Nimitz out on the West Coast. And that was some of the most extraordinary footage. But they're playing this footage from the fighter jets. So here we're talking about, I think in most of these cases, they were Hornets, F-18s, advanced fighter jet, and nothing compared to my F-15 Strike Eagle, though, I must say. But nonetheless, an advanced fighter. And let's take a look at what you all are saying, an advanced fighter. And they started showing these things. And pretty much all of the media, I mean, I realize we have a lot going on, but pretty much all of the media, with the exception of a little here, a little there, with a kind of a chuckle here and a chuckle there, are saying nothing. Isn't that strange? This is very different from when the government investigated with Project Blue Book, isn't it? What was it, back in roughly like 1947? And then I think they put an official end to the program in 69. Obviously, there are going to be people who say, oh, but it was going on before then, and now it's going on after that time, and all of these sorts of, that's why I can't, it's hard for me to go into the circles where people normally talk about UFOs and this sort of thing. Subject is immensely interesting, and certainly interesting for us who care about white well-being, because what might alien life forms, how might they want to behave if they showed up? Something we should ponder. And so it's very interesting. But the moment you step foot in it, you are surrounded by the crankiest cranks you have ever met. I mean, you have people with these crotchets that are so insane, are just so insane. And there is this pressure in those communities that you have to believe those people. It's like, believe women, well, believe the craziest alien abducted story. Something very interesting about the abduction stories too. Maybe we can get into that. I didn't even intend to tell any jokes tonight. It's just, it might lend itself to it. But, oh gosh, I'll try to stay away from it for now. Let me see. I'm burning up inside. Are we seeing anything? Are there any spacecraft flying by? The magic window, you ask and he supplies, or she supplies. It can be any sex. That's the interesting thing about the magic window. Western kind artist life says aliens? ? Yes, aliens of the outer space kind. Alex Simpson says, evening, brother. Is it possible you could pull up and go over Biden's horrible anti-white speech from Buffalo? I'll say in the hope of keeping people around that want to hear that, maybe. Also says it was also naturally a call to ban all discussion heretical to anti-whiteism from the public discourse. Well, naturally, that's what happens every single time that a psychopath, a mentally deranged person, otherwise, I mean, you have categories of people, I'll just say psychopaths and autistic people who, I won't speak for the totality, but it seems like both of those fall into a category of maybe lacking mirror neurons or having too few and therefore unable to feel what others around them feel. And then those people are attracted to the playing the villain. And so that's where they end up. If a psychotic person or an autistic person, genuinely autistic, not you or you or you that say you're autistic, whatever, if they were to suddenly become interested in white well-being, what would happen? They would better themselves. They would get in shape. They would get the best job that they could get, create some stability in their life, find a mate, start a family, because these are the objectives that we present to folk, rather than be the monster, because then they'll give you a monster. Artificer says that he has seen alien life, the UFOs. My grandparents, his grandparents have seen UFOs. Well. I think maybe we all probably know somebody who has seen or believes they have seen an unidentified flying object. think back to, when was it? Oh my gosh, what was it? The 50s? When were they building the SR-71 Blackbird and flying that thing? And there's footage. This is crazy. There is footage of an SR-71 all completely boxed up on a giant like tractor trailer, and maybe, I don't know, maybe, yeah, it was just one. It was all boxed up, and they were transporting it from where they built it to where they were going to test it. And this was at a time where there was like almost zero electronics in a car. I mean, it was a very crude time, and there was a spaceship inside this box going down the road. Think about that. What year was that? Does anybody know? When did they start testing? I believe it began with a plane called Have Blue. You can look that up, and we can find out. And then you can say, oh my God, you know, what did they actually have for like home appliances? Did they have any computers? Did they have, you know, what would be defined today as a computer? Buddy Duddyful says the UFO thing is a distraction. Unfortunately, many of our people have dedicated their entire lives to trivial pursuits like UFO and Bigfoot research. That's a great point. They really have. Many of our folks have. It is a way to just get away from, and obviously these things are often populated almost entirely by white people, because white people are trying to escape the evil identity that anti-whiteism has put on us. And so I'm not white, just a Bigfoot hunter. Not white, just an alien hunter. Lockwood is here. Hello to you. Alex says, same thing again. So I got it, brother. JD is here. Says, pretty sure his ex isn't human. Great Reptile is with us. Great to see you, brother. Hope you and the family are recovering magnificently. Utah, what is this? Unsalted is here. Is that Barky? And Ursa Major is with us. Hello, welcome. Neil Jones, aliens. Oh, the little, I like Tom. I like the little saucer spaceship. Did anybody find out when the SR-71 was tested? I'm not saying that's what's happening now, but it is a possibility. But isn't it strange? Oh, by the way, if you have a question or comment that you absolutely want to have me read and address tonight, you can jump on over to Entropy and you can financially gift with it. You can do it there. You can do it on Cash App. I have that up and running, and also on Odyssey, also up and running. Or tag me as No White Guilt on one of these platforms, and I'll get to it that way. But isn't it strange? The government of the United States of America a year ago starts showing footage from fighter jets and interviewing fighter pilots about their experiences out for the public to see. So why would they be doing that? That's a really big question. And you can't just leave it to alien hunters to answer, because they are, I'm not going to say everyone, but the vast majority are just quacks, absolute nut jobs. Of course, there'll be some that are not. So the hearing that took place, was it yesterday? Took place because of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2022, which was signed into law 2021. The funding for that comes from the U.S. Defense Bill, and I think it's at least 2 Democrats and maybe a Republican as well pushed for this to be added. And the reason primarily was her name Julie something or other, something like that, the Congresswoman, Democrat, was because they said that you have these sightings are taking place, and even pursuit. Pilots and other military and civilians associated with the flights, the civilian flights, and etc. They've been talking in the background, and a lot of talk, a lot of chatter in the background. And this woman, this Democrat, she said that, and I think this is honest of her. She said she's concerned with how these pilots and these others are treated when they see something. And as of right now, she says that, and I believe this as well, that they are still ridiculed. They're still mocked. They're still ribbed for it. It's not as bad as it was in the past. If you all are probably well aware, pilots would lose their jobs. They would be suspended without pay, suspended with pay. They would have to undergo psychological evaluations, the same that held true for those working the radar. Is there anybody who's with us today or who will watch and replay? You worked radar. You flew. You have seen something unusual. You don't know what it is. Maybe it's something explicable, but maybe it's not. Because according in this preliminary report that they did, and I guess that was probably a year ago, that first public hearing, I think they said there were 144 reports that are certain these things were there. They were observed by people who had an understanding of what they were observing, based in their experience of flight and physics and the things that they needed to know to be able to perform their jobs. And only one of those times of the 144 has been able to be explained. So there clearly needs to be a different environment for airmen, service people, what have you, to be able to come forward and say, there was something there, and this is what I saw. Somebody to report this to. Not somebody, but somebody, for them to, and to protect them as well. Because you can't have an environment where somebody mentions something that they saw that's inexplicable, and then that person doesn't get promoted anymore. And then that person is their pay is ultimately cut because there is no raise over the so many years. You can't have an environment like that, because then people can't come forward. Now, you need an environment like that because you need everybody coming forward that sees and experiences something, so that they can share it rationally and let the people who receive the information decide whether it's worthless or not. Now, I'll also say this. If you are white sympathetic and you're, say, an airman or any of these roles, and you are, let's just say, for the sake of argument, you're flying an F-18, you're flying one of these Hornets, and you're streaking across the sky, and you see a spaceship. I mean, for lack of better words, you see a spaceship. If your buddies and others know that you're white sympathetic, depending upon what kind of things that you've communicated to them about your sympathies, if you have said anything that is of the anti-nationalist variety or cult nat variety, then you probably don't want to say anything about what you saw, because that will be used against you easily. And because they're looking for a way to get rid of you. If you've said just white positive things, which is what we want you saying here, but we are redeeming people to love, hope, and a new life, a new way. If you haven't said something that is white negative and all that you've said has been white positive, then you're probably fine sharing what you've seen, unless it only happened in your head. Then maybe keep that quiet. Brand Danger is here. Great to see you. Spider says, hello. Big hello to you. Artificer said it was pinged on the radar, the craft that I guess his grandparents saw. Fascinating. Mrs. Jess Horse is here. Great to see you. We are asking today, we're talking about, Olivia, hello to you. We're talking about UFOs. Have you ever seen a UFO? A UFO could have just been a balloon you didn't know. You didn't know what it is. You're not a pilot. You don't work on aircraft. You don't fly a helicopter, so you don't understand. Could have been the stealth fighter, F-117. Could have been a B-2 stealth bomber, right? You don't know. You just saw something in the sky, didn't look quite right. Or have you known somebody who has seen something? What do you think of the stories that these people come up with? Oh my God, I just can't help myself. Why is it that their back doors are always being probed? For the love of God, will somebody just get to these people and give them a new fantasy to talk about? Oh my God. They're always getting probed. All right. So the bill now, law, requires the military to establish a research committee to collect and examine all of these reports. Like I said, there were 144 and only one was explicable. And they have re-termed these objects UAPs, unknown aerial phenomena, which I think is also appropriate, because we might know a lot of what can be up in the air flying around, but that's not to say that we know everything. The proper scientific approach is to say we have an open mind, and if it's worth time, if it makes sense, if it satisfies reason and logic, then we can look for evidence. If you examine things too often that don't satisfy for reason and logic, then like things that I don't know, that could go faster than what we understand the heat that heat will cause. And therefore your answer is something like magic. Magic does it. So they have magic technology or magic. If you investigate too much of that, then you are, meandering off into error, because you just can't investigate every fiction of the imagination. But you have to have an open mind. And I have an open mind when it comes to these things. The universe is beyond comprehension. So far beyond comprehension, it is a joke to even say that it is beyond comprehension. Our imaginations can't even stretch out of our neighborhood, for the love of God. I mean, you get somebody with an ROV and they fly it out and the camera points down, they fly around, and the people are like, oh my gosh, right, because you can't contain it in your head. There's so much here. Now, of course, the vast distances in space often as well will undermine the possibility of intelligent life traversing space. But nonetheless, there are these things taking place, and we have to ask a few things, especially as those who are in the white positive sphere. What's really going on here when they're holding these sessions? Is it just to distract the population from all of the nonsense that's going on? I think there are. I'll give some ideas, and I'm going to get some feedback from you all as well as we're going, and I'm going to jump into the actual stories. So let me just see about that, and I'll show you all some footage as well. So we have over here on the Washington. Do you want to begin there, or do you want to begin here? Let's see. Watch. House Intelligence Committee holds hearing on unidentified aerial phenomena. And folks, if my audio goes weird, muffled, or anything like that, let me know. It's been happening on and off. Congress held its first hearing in half a century Tuesday on unidentified flying objects, and no, there is still no government confirmation of extraterrestrial life. So that's huge. That's huge. If it was meant to be a distraction, they're really gone up, aren't they? Because they would put that everywhere. It would be on every newspaper. It would be on every website. It would be everywhere if it was just to distract us. So maybe the fact that they're kind of ignoring it a bit is evidence that it's not intended to be a distraction, even though I'm not saying that that's not the case. Testifying before a House Intelligence Subcommittee, Pentagon officials did not disclose additional information from their ongoing investigation of hundreds of unexplained sightings in the sky. But they said they handpicked a director for a new task force to coordinate data collection efforts on what the government has officially labeled unidentified aerial phenomena. Ronald Moultrie, the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, said the Pentagon was also trying to destigmatize the issue and encourage pilots and other military personnel to report anything unusual they see. That's even if you posit that there's no such thing as alien life or possible of any type, advanced or more advanced than us, or single-celled organisms somewhere in the universe. Even if you posit that there's none of that, you need an environment where everybody will come forward and say what they see, because even though we are living our lives in this nursery room of Western civilization, it's increasingly becoming more like, I mean, the weeds are starting to come in through the railing in this nursery room, in our crib in the nursery room. Nonetheless, the world, the country, the United States, everything outside that nursery room and that crib is in the jungle. And that means that you have to behave, and this is going to be important in a little bit, you have to behave as though everything is out to kill you. Because if you don't, you get killed. And I know there are going to be a lot of people that we have bred ourselves into hothouse plants. And there are going to be people, especially a lot of ladies out there, that are going to say, oh, I can't even stomach the thought of living like, I'm afraid you get to live like this because others are out there preventing you from being slaughtered. And they have to be ready, willing and able at all times to behave in the exact same way as every other animal in the jungle. That's how you're able to have your peace and this illusion that we don't live in the jungle. We do indeed. And so you need people, especially your military personnel, coming forward to say, I saw something. This is what it looked like. And here are all the details of the encounter. Because, as I say, even if you posit there's no such thing as alien life, you don't want this stigma associated with coming forward. Because if there's something seen, it might be because there was something there. And that something there might well be advanced technology from another country, which you might say to yourself all day long, well, the United States and Germany are allies. The United States and the UK are allies. That means nothing. Trust me, it means nothing. Anybody get an edge like the control of gravity, which is what most of these spacecraft seem to require. They seem to be using a manipulation or control of gravity. That's it. That group of people is taking the hell to the world and all of the other leaders, because they are going to take charge. It happened ASAP. If it is something made on Earth and works, it would be weaponized instantly. You think for a second, just think about the UK for a second. Do you think for a second that oligarchs in the UK would tolerate being second fiddle to anti-white oligarchs that stand above them? No. If they were able to acquire that information and that technology first, they would bring it overnight. Quote, we want to know what's out there as much as you want to know what's out there, Moultrie told lawmakers, adding that he was a fan of science fiction himself. We get the questions, quote, we get the questions not just from you, we get it from family, and we get them night and day, close quote, he said. What was that old show, Soul Train? I feel like Moultrie is like a performer on sultry. Is he non-white? Lawmakers from both parties say UFOs are a national security concern. Yes, they are. Sightings of what appear to be aircraft flying without discernible means of propulsion have been reported near military bases and coastlines, raising the prospect that witnesses have spotted undiscovered or secret Chinese or Russian technology. But the sightings are usually fleeting. Some appear for no more than an instant on camera, and then sometimes end up distorted by the camera lens. The U.S. government is believed to hold additional technical information on the sightings that it has not disclosed publicly. An interim report released by intelligence officials last year counted 144 sightings of aircraft or other devices apparently flying at mysterious speeds or trajectories. In all but one of the sightings investigated, there was too little information for investigators to even broadly characterize the nature of the incident. A top Pentagon official on Tuesday briefly demonstrated the challenge. Scott Bray, Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, stood next to a television to show a short video taken from an F-18 military plane. The video shows a blue sky with passing clouds in a single frame, which it took several minutes for staff in the room to queue up. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. There is an image of one balloon-like shape. As you can see, quote, as you can see, finding UAP is harder than you might think, Bray said, using the acronym for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. Representative Andre Carson, an Indiana Democrat who chaired the hearing, called on investigators to show they, quote, are willing to follow the facts where they lead. Representative Rick Crawford of Arkansas, Republican, noted that the investigations were not, quote, about finding alien spacecraft, but about delivering dominant intelligence. Quote, the inability to understand objectives in our sensitive operating areas is tantamount to intelligence failure that we certainly want to avoid, he said. Well, I think, and what you're seeing here actually is this over delicateness. You know, like they're about to find their fainting couch because they merely allude to the possibility of space housing more than humanity as intelligent life. I think it's preposterous. Yeah, of course. I mean, there is a Frank something or other came up with a formula from, this was many, many years ago. I think he was at Cornell. They came up with a formula that was for people who said, no way that there is anything else intelligent out in space except for us. And it starts off, it just talks about the Milky Way, the mathematical formula. So this is just one galaxy of every time we can look further, we see more. And it's, you know, it's like an average size galaxy, spiral galaxy. And it starts off by saying, well, here's the total number. Well, let's just say 1/50th of that, 1/10 of that, 1/2 of that, 1/100th of this. And it's things like planets that are in what we call the Goldilocks zone. So they might say, like, well, let's say only 1/100th of planets are that orbit a sun are in the Goldilocks zone where we understand life will flourish. And so it just keeps breaking it down for the person who's saying that can't be anything else out there but us. And you get them saying yes, yes, yes every time. And when you get to the end of this equation, and near the end, it says, okay, let's say that of the planets that develop life and the life becomes intelligent, that only like 1/100th of those planets end up going far enough to become spacefaring without just killing themselves off with warfare, intelligent warfare. And so then the formula goes, well, the question then asks, what's the equals here? What does it equate to? How many planets out there have intelligent life that are more intelligent than what we have here on Earth, and therefore potentially able to be spacefaring? And the number is staggering. I don't remember the exact number. It might be like millions. So that's how difficult it is to really comprehend space. And that's why I think that we have to have a mature approach when it comes, I guess, as a people, we have to have a mature approach when it comes to this, eyes open, and to not be treated as a ridiculous thing unless somebody starts off with, I was probed. UFO hearing features historic testimony from Pentagon officials. Congress held a rare public hearing Tuesday into the existence of what the government calls unidentified aerial phenomena, more commonly known as UFOs, a subject of scrutiny by the Pentagon and U.S. intelligence agencies following an increase in sightings by military personnel and pilots in recent years. An increase in sightings. Isn't that interesting? By taking testimony from senior government officials, lawmakers intend to bring, quote, out of the shadows a Defense Department organization that has been tracking the sightings, said Representative Andre Carson. So there's already a body tracking the sightings. And of course there would be. And this is chairman of the House Intelligence Subcommittee on Counterterrorism, Counterintelligence, and Counter-Proliferation. So any minute now, you can see the door get kicked in, and I'm going to be dragged off as an alien interloper who has shown up and is trying to take over. That effort, revealed in 2017, has collected eyewitness accounts, including from naval aviators who said they saw flying objects that seemed to lack any visible means of propulsion and defied human understanding of aerodynamics and physics. The hearing was the first time in more than 50 years that U.S. officials have provided testimony for public consumption about their investigation of UFOs. The Air Force closed the inquiry into the subject, Project Blue Book, in 1970. Okay, so it was 1970. We know, quote, we know that our service members have encountered unidentified aerial phenomena, said that this is Ronald Moultrie again, the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, told the bipartisan panel of lawmakers, we are committed to an effort to determine their origins, close quote. While the hearing marked a significant moment in the government's effort to reveal more of what it knows about unexplained objects in the sky, it was short on revelations. Scott W. Bray, Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, played a brief video of what he described as, quote, a spherical object with a reflective surface as it zoomed past the cockpit of a U.S. F-18 fighter jet. Quote, I do not have an explanation for what this specific object is, Bray said. Lawmakers asked Bray to replay the video and pause on the fast-moving object, which was difficult given its speed. The video was newly declassified and aired for the first time at the hearing. Earlier footage from naval aircraft and ships has shown other unexplained phenomena observed for longer periods. I wonder if we can get the magic window. Maybe the magic window will play along with us. And we will see. Magic window, will you do it for us? Show us some of the footage of these objects that fighter planes have pursued. One of the most famous of those sightings, taken by jets from the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier in 2004, shows an object that appears to dart through the air in many directions at tremendous speed. UFO researchers have dubbed it the Tic Tac because of its capsule-like shape. Now, they don't say here, but I believe I recall the pilot saying that the craft was, or what appeared to be a craft, was more than 40 feet long. And then I'll share with you what else the guy, if you had seen them talk about this before, because I don't know that they interviewed the guy here. The highly trained pilots who witnessed the object, which Bray said remains unexplained, have said publicly that they were baffled and reluctant to discuss their experience owing to a persistent culture of stigmatizing aviators who report UFOs. Bray and Moultrie said the military wants to change that culture. In recent years, personnel have been encouraged to report sightings, and the military now has a standardized system to track and analyze information. The message is clear. If you see something, you need to report it. Sightings by military personnel have been especially high, leading some to speculate that military equipment and facilities may be of particular interest to whomever is behind the unidentified craft, including a foreign military. But a 2021 report by the U.S. intelligence community concluded the clustering of sightings around U.S. military facilities may result from, quote, a collection bias, given the higher level of attention the military has paid, as well as greater numbers of sophisticated seniors in those areas that may be able to capture the unidentified objects. I'm sorry, it was sensors in those areas that may be able to capture the unidentified objects on camera or detect signals emanating from them. Bray said that the United States has reports from non-military sources as well, but he did not elaborate. Officials have said that the unidentified objects could pose a threat to national security. That has helped to spur more openness about the subject. In their testimony, the Pentagon officials focused largely on the potential danger the objects pose to military equipment and personnel, and steered away from the speculation about whether the craft were extraterrestrial. Bray noted that the U.S. military pilots have had, quote, 11 near misses. Think about that. With UFOs. There have been no collisions, he said. He added that the military has never attempted to communicate with the objects or fired on them. Officials say they are doubtful that the handful of sightings for which there is no clear explanation point to a sophisticated, secretive military technology that Russia, China, or other U.S. adversaries possess. The intelligence report from last year found that U.S. government investigators lacked data to indicate that the craft, quote, are part of a foreign collection program on or indicative of a major technological advancement by a potential adversary, close quote. The government was unable to determine whether more than 140 UFOs were atmospheric events playing tricks on sensors or craft piloted by foreign adversaries, or whether the objects were extraterrestrial in origin. Defense Department investigators don't have any physical evidence that would suggest visitors from other worlds have come to Earth, Bray said, but he implicitly acknowledged that the United States has collected tangible objects in the course of its investigation. Isn't that interesting? Tangible. That means you can hold it. Quote, how about wreckage, close quote, asked a representative from Illinois. Have we come across any wreckage of any kind of object that has now been examined by you? Bray replied that the investigators don't have, quote, any wreckage that isn't explainable, that isn't consistent with being of terrestrial origin. So this goes on a little bit. We can return to this. Just saying that there aren't separate UAP sensors. It's not a separate UAP processing computer. It is not a separate UAP a dissemination chain or whatever, close quote. All right. So I'm going to get into my thoughts in just a moment, and I want to hear your thoughts as well. But I do want to share what I recall from this pilot being interviewed, and this is public information. So there was a F-18 captain in the Navy who was on a training, exercise, and they radioed him and the other F-18 that was flying at the time in the training exercise and said, hey, we've picked up something on radar. This is, I think, the Nimitz incident. Will you fly over there and see what it is? And the Navy supposedly have been catching on radar. If you're unaware, radar, you have like your atmosphere. So you have the surface of the earth, whether it's land or water, or all mushy because it's anti-whites. And then it, of course, is your atmosphere that gets thinner and thinner. Radar can pick up almost all the way to the surface, and there might be some out there that can pick all the way up to the surface, and then up to a ceiling. So, but it can't see all the way beyond, like throughout the total atmosphere of the planet. So supposedly, and this supposedly is not talked about very much in the Navy, but they pick up objects that come in from the ceiling of the radar and will rocket down, move around a little bit, and then head toward the surface, typically over the ocean, and then will go down into the ocean. And they supposedly have objects on radar coming up from the floor, in other words, as low as the radar can look, and then shooting up through the ceiling of the radar, as high as the radar can look. Does that make sense? So they had seen an object come in on the radar, and they vectored these fighter pilots out to have a look at what it was. As they flew up on the item, the object, the craft, this is the thing that they called the Tic Tac. It looked like just like a white Tic Tac. I believe the captain said it was over 40 foot long, he estimated. And I guess comparing it in his mind maybe to helicopters and things of this nature. And it was near the surface of the water, and like right above it. And so he flew in and executed this corkscrewing maneuver to head down toward this craft. So he's flying in up here with the other F-18, but he begins to descend like this toward it so that the jet's tilted up and he can look at the item. He claims that the item was over top of another Tic Tac item that was submerged, and that the surface of the water was agitated, but not in the way that a rotor from like a helicopter or a hovercraft would agitate the water. And as he's descending, that craft begins to ascend. And he claims that it mirrored him, so that as he's doing this, it began doing that back up toward him, or the opposite, I guess it was. He was going like this, and then it was going the opposite way, so that they were getting closer and closer, corkscrewing. And then he said it rotated a little bit, and again, he says no apparent means of propulsion, and then rockets off at an unthinkable speed, something that would easily kill a human being inside, or any animal, any like living thing, with the exception of the possibility that the gravitational space inside of the craft is unaffected by the gravity of the planet and the other laws of physics. And so he pursued. And I can't recall exactly. I think maybe both F-18s went after it, and then he ordered the other one to go back to the one that was under the water. When it got back there, and then when he also returned, it was gone. There was nothing in the water that they could see anymore. And so that was what you see. I think it played for us behind me, where you see the craft. It kind of like rotates. It's in motion as it does that little rotating thing. And supposedly that is the radar on board of the F-18. So this, for folks who don't know, fighter planes, etc., they'll have radar on board the craft. So they have their own radar for items that are within the view of the radar. And that's what you're seeing when it takes off. Artificer said 100,000 miles an hour. Is that what they said it did? Let me take a look at what you all are saying. I'll check Cash App, and then I'm going to get into some of my thoughts, because I think I was cogitating on a few points that are really relevant for Western kind. Let's get a big round of raucous emojis from Maki. Thank you. Some 07s in there for salutes as well. Maki, $25 financial gift. God bless you. Thank you so much. You must know that I work for a living and I have to take care of things around the place, and I have other things going on, and that I love Western Kind so much that I get on a stream to have fun with all of you and to spread what I think is relevant and important information about viewing these things and how we should handle them. $25 financial gift from this champion. He writes here, now pilots can record with cell phones. Wow. So I think that one video was a cell phone that he was holding up the fighter. Was it a fighter plane in the one that Bray was showing? You can see this metallic thing go by. It's like less than a frame or a frame and a half or whatever it is, but at a high rate of speed. Thank you very much, Maki. Check entropy. Did the magic window show us that footage of the radar? All right. Tall Kevin is here. Thank you so much, brother, over here on Entropy. Financially gifting $3. He says, what is your favorite sci-fi movie? My favorite sci-fi? I guess just off the cuff, I haven't seen movies in so long because they're just so anti-white, was the original Star Wars. I think probably that one and Empire Strikes Back. Probably. But I mean, when it comes to Star Wars, the first three that were made, it's all about Darth Vader. You know what I mean? It's just, who doesn't love Darth Vader? All right. White Wellbeing Advocate asks, what's in the picture in the background on the wall? Well, that right there, actually, no, that one might be different footage, but it might be the Virginia Beach or outside of Virginia Beach footage. You know, the fighter pilot footage that I was just talking about, because you can see the mechanism to lock onto the fighter is trying. There it is right there. It's trying to lock onto it. Well, it just went by. It's trying to lock onto it, and it's having a difficulty locking on to the item. And those who don't know, when the weapons system, well, actually, you know what? The weapon systems were probably not even on. If they were on, the lock would essentially indicate that you can use your weapons and your chance of success is very high. But that's with dealing with terrestrial craft. I mean, you don't know. If the thing can zip away at 100,000 miles an hour, nothing's going to get it. Online Storage says, space aliens. I would love space aliens to show up and say, hey, white positive community, do y'all need an ally? Yes, as a matter of fact. Yes. Can you override the censorship for us? Because I would never ask for any military assistance. Just let me talk to our people. Prevent the anti-whites from censoring me, and then we will be able to recapture our destiny, have peace on earth. Have the aliens over for Thanksgiving, and it'd be great. All right. I'm going to see what you all are saying in the live chat. Reptile says, Promethean hails, brother. The spirit of the West burns strong. It does indeed. Thank you for that. Olivia and who else? I said hello to you earlier, didn't I, Olivia? Victorian Time Traveler is with us and says, I have a story, but it'd be more appropriate for a Halloween episode. Well. Let's make sure you remember that. I want to hear it. Riptile says, I live on a military flight path. We frequently see maneuvers that don't match the abilities of disclosed planes, possibly Aurora DARPA stuff. Yeah, well, you look at some of those at those airplane shows, the military aircraft shows, and what they show to the world. Some of those Russian, I mean, they crash. Often they'll push it so hard, but you wouldn't believe how well these things can maneuver. But really, when it comes to air-to-air combat, it's not like, it wasn't World War II anymore with the warbirds. The idea is you want to kill your enemy long before there's any maneuvering and getting out of the way. Art Acrobat says, we are aliens to everyone else in the universe. So true, brother. That's actually, yeah. Donning Armor is with us. Great to see you. B. Volkish is here. British Dragon. All of you who are showing up now, what is this, IJB and the rest? Have you all seen any UFOs? Have any of your family members seen them? Don't be afraid to share. Just don't tell me that you were abducted and probed, because that's disgusting. If you're probed by one of your loved ones, just keep it to yourself. But I don't want to hear about any probing. Amber Lynn Yates says, HR 666 bill to make it illegal to oppose critical race theory. Anti-whiteism is anti-Christ. Yeah, I mean, it's clearly, anti-whiteism is clearly demonic. And the targeted victim by everything that's observable to every honest person, by anything that we would refer to as demonic, is the white race. It's Western kind. It's what we produce. Well written. British Dragon. That's cool. Kingdom of Vinland. Great to see you. Jason is here. Great name. All right. Lockie says, I believe the whole UFO thing is just a way to advance an anti-white plan for a global union. It's possible. Easier to unite humanity when there is a clear enemy to us all. That kind of thing. That is entire, and that's one of the things we have to be on the lookout for. Patrick of Southtown and JK160. Fornull is here. Great to see you, brother. Champion. Yeah, we need to be aware. A Victorian Time Traveler says, I'm from New Mexico, so of course I've seen UFOs. We need to be aware. Hello to Nancy, Drew, and Shauna. We need to be aware that, one sec, and I'll show you all some video up on the screen, not on the magic window. Barky is here. Great to see you, Barky Malarkey. We need to be aware that anti-whites will do anything. They will do anything to victimize Western kind. They will do anything to white erase us, anything to biologically white erase us. If they could convince people that there was an invasion from outer space to get everybody to get behind the current order, and then this anti-white oligarchy, and then the anti-white oligarchy is able to say, well, just about all of the white race happens to be in cahoots with space aliens, and therefore justify what they would like to do with us. They would happily do that. At the moment, they couldn't do that because there's still too many white people in Western countries. But in the future, it won't be impossible. They could also, there could be any type, any almost limitless types of a ruse that they could implement. Maybe Jesus in the sky or something of this nature. And then, well, you all have to, what Jesus actually wants is for white people to all breed themselves out of existence or something of this nature. So it could be, and that's something that we have to be mature enough to understand when we talk about this, because the entire time that we talk about it from an adult point of view and from a survival and well-being point of view, we can't ignore or muffle or silence that there is a parallel thread of thought that is, I think, in work of the mind of every, in the soul of every Westman, man, woman, and child. And that is the inquisitiveness that is natural for our people. We want to know. We want to know what's beyond the next hill. And if it's something that wants to dominate us, then we seek to dominate before dominated. That is natural for Western kind. And so the whole time I'm talking about this, and even while I think about the implications and what if alien life did show up, and what might that mean? What might happen? What could happen to our people? The whole time I'm thinking about this, or also at the same time, what if it's just a ruse? What if it's just a stratagem that the anti-white oligarchy is employing because they think this is all we need, and then we'll be able to finish off white erasing the planet Earth. The whole time we're thinking about that and planning for that, there's really not a lot of planning that has to be done. The only planning is just that we have to be mature enough. We have to make sure that we and our brothers and sisters are mature enough to come to a sober conclusion if any sort of claim is made. The whole time, though, there's this other train of thought that says, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be earth shattering? That there would be other life out there. What might other life be like? Of course, it's infinite, the possibilities. And so there's a kernel of curiosity and love and energy that is at work inside of us whenever we think about some part of the unknown. I think that's another reason why a lot of white people who want to escape the identity that anti-whiteism puts on us, that's why they go into these pursuits, these diversions. They want to go hunt Bigfoot, and they want to go hunt ghosts. They want to go hunt Loch Ness Monster. Again, it's something that is clearly, demonstrably natural for Western kind, and undoubtedly is a part of what has made us a truly great people. Because if you don't give a shit what's over the hill, what's under the bush, if you don't give a shit for what's out there, then you kind of stagnate and you kind of build like mud hut and grass huts forever, right? You kind of don't go any further. So anybody who's of the mind frame that's like, oh no, just all this alien stuff, we should just ignore it and pay no attention to it. Something might be missing inside of you. I don't know. Maybe get some therapy, because white people, that's normal for us to be interested and excited by that. So it's normal for the government to be investigating this sort of thing. UAPs, they call them now, unidentified flying or aerial, phenomena. And they should be doing it. But why are they saying it to the public? Why has this become something that they feel they have to share with the public? Well, there are a couple possibilities there. Could be like Lockie was saying, it could be that anti-white oligarchy is wanting to weave into the anti-white narrative this concern for potential invasion from outside of planet Earth, and then to use that as they might. Could be something like that. Could be because there is something there and the government doesn't know what it is, and they are concerned that other governments around the world also know that there's something there, and the United States government doesn't know exactly what all those other governments know. And therefore, they want to get ahead of any potential promulgation of the news of unidentified things that are clearly not terrestrial, zipping around the atmosphere of planet Earth. It could be because they know there are things out there. They're recording them. They're seeing them. Maybe we're only seeing a fraction of other footage that they have. Maybe pursuits of these things. Maybe there are craft that have flown up beside fighter jets or what have you, and they've gotten very clear images of them, and they're just not showing us that. Maybe the U.S. government knows exactly that these things are out there, but they don't know what their capabilities are. And again, back to the first possibility, they are concerned that other governments, because of potentially maybe an uptick in these cases where these UFOs fly up beside military aircraft and civilian aircraft, and people are able to get a really good look at them. If the United States is seeing that an uptick there, then it would be correct to surmise that it's happening elsewhere around the world. And if that's happening, then you better start talking about it, because if you don't, then you won't look like you have more info on it than the country who does start talking about it first. Imagine if Iran were suddenly to the government of Iran to come out and say, there are aliens. We got a great photograph, got a great video of them. They flew up right beside the F-14s we bought so long ago from the United States, and we got great footage. Here's what it looks like. The United States would look like they didn't have as much info, and the U.S. government doesn't want to be in that predicament. So it might be that there's something there. Either the U.S. doesn't know much about it or has plenty knowledge of it, and they want to get out ahead of other governments. There's another possibility that is sublunary. I use this like interstellar. That's not a sci-fi word. But there's another possibility that is much more sublunary. And that is it possible that there are elements in the government that have identified a way to steal billions of dollars, or at least hundreds of millions? You initiate this program, you start this, get this department started. The millions of taxpayer dollars begin to flow to these investigations, and ultimately going to go nowhere, because the phenomena has been around for a very long time, maybe decades and decades. Maybe they got footage and video and photographs of it, and it never gets any better. You never get to know any more about it. They're always off. They can always zip away, whatever it is, ball of lightning or whatever. I don't know. So they decide, why don't we just rake in the money? Why don't we use this as some sort of a scam to rake? That's not impossible. It's also not impossible that this committee and the department and the investigation could have been started honestly, and then people come in and steal from it. That can happen as well. Welcome to the thievery of the modern West, unfortunately. There's also the possibility, have you all ever heard about or read about or talked about with friends that the position, I don't know if it's officially stated by the United States government, but supposedly the position is that if the population is made aware that aliens exist, that they will lose faith in the government, in their religions, and etc. Supposedly, there have been investigations, and they've said, well, what's the closest thing that we can see on planet Earth to what happens to a population when they encounter a civilization, another life form that is advanced relative to where they are? And of course, they looked at all of these moments in history where non-white peoples were visited by Western kinds, sailing up in these big, beautiful, tall ships, masterpieces, and the kind of things that happened in those civilizations. Things like loss of faith in the religion, loss of faith in the rulers, etc. And so they speculate that the same thing would happen. And so what would that mean? That would mean that the government would have to use much more violent means to keep people in check. And that it might be weaker in one area, stronger in another area of the world. And so if the United States falls into a position globally where it's having to just mass execute and kill people because of the anarchy, but another country, maybe China, is not having to deal with it is not as challenging for China as it is for the US. Well, maybe the US then gets invaded by China. So is it possible that they are leaking information about the existence of space aliens in order to create an awareness, I guess we could say, an understanding, an acceptance of alien life? Because it's very easy to say, surely Frank Drake, that was the guy's name. It just came back to me, the mathematician from Cornell. It's easy to say, surely there's alien life outside of, intelligent life outside of Earth. But it's quite another thing to say they're here. So maybe to introduce this slowly to the population so that when they do say, yeah, in fact, we got a great picture, here's the window and the little aliens going like this and then flicking us off, whatever, right? They're real. The population, potentially, if you've suffused society with an acceptance to alien life, won't fall out the same way that it's expected that they would if it were just broken to everyone. Okay, alien life is here, and we don't know what they want. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know how many of them are. That's another thing. Let me make clear. Every time I talk with folks about this subject, you at a party, wherever you are, they always talk about aliens as aside from those people that are just getting probed while they're bent over, because they've got a whole litany of like, there is this type and there is that type and there is this type. So, but aside from them, people are, when they talk about it, they act like it's a single species that could be present, or two, or the reality is we don't know. You don't know how many different alien species could be showing up and could have shown up in the past. My guess would be that when it comes to the things, if there are things showing up that are from alien worlds, that they are almost certainly just probes, not for the probing of Uranus, the planet, of course, but for just same kind of probes that we landed on Mars and elsewhere, because it would be a lot easier to send probes out than living organisms. Of course, you have the possibility of life based on other things, and it almost certainly would be. The way that an alien life form would think, the likelihood that it would think anything like us, understand reality anywhere close to the way we understand it, is infinitely small. All of your science fiction movies and books and comics, they all rely on these anthropomorphized beings so that we can understand and we can read. They have the exact same sort of objectives that a human might have, the exact same thought processes that a human would have, but it need not be anything like that. It need not be anything that we could even imagine. That's the reality. And it's in a way, it's in a way, it's staggeringly intimidating and beautiful horrifying and beautiful at the same time. There might be another reason that this could be fake rather than real. And that is that the government, the US government, leaking this to the population, making it seem like its fighter pilots are coming into contact and witnessing alien craft, is to bankrupt other countries on planet Earth that are not already subservient to the anti-white oligarchs that run the United States, that dominate the United States. Why is that, Jason? Well, the posture that you have to take and the actions that you have to take, remember, you're operating outside of the nursery room here. This is law of the jungle. This is, if there's something else out there, it will kill you or enslave you, whether you can see the chains or not, in order to ensure its survival. So this is game theory. It's not, there is no equilibrium other than mutual destruction. That's the universe. And lamenting it all you want just proves that you're not fit to be alive, because that's what really goes on in the world. And I don't mean that fit to be alive as in that we would make sure that you enter the spiritual realm or anything of that nature. I just, it's a hyperbole to underscore the disease of nursery room thinking when it comes to the law of the jungle, which is the way nations must interact with each other, the way the oligarchs that dominate countries must interact with each other. So other nations, China, for example, an enormous competitor, and is poised to easily pass the United States GDP, easily poised to easily surpass the United States in military, and just chugging right along. If they conclude, and they would have to conclude this, that the craft that the United States is saying is out there, that they're witnessing, that they're videotaping, etc., is machinery, military hardware of the United States, China would have to prepare for conflict with a country that now controls gravity, has the ability to manipulate gravity. That would mean that China would have to dump trillions of dollars. It would have to take resources away from other pursuits. And there is no stagnant state in the jungle. There is no stagnant state in preparation for warfare. No resources are being that are apportioned for conflict, violent conflict, are going to waste with the intent of those. There can be thieves, of course, but with the intent of those allocation of funds, they are going where they need to go without there being error that is intentional. So China might need to really be working on programs A, B, and C for threats the United States has to China's domination or ability to fend off the United States in warfare. It really might need to be dedicating its brightest people, its biggest resources, its and we're talking about like the resources that they use to build the products that they need for the investigation, experimentation, etc. And of course, the money, who knows what it would end up coming to, in order to deal with those A, B, and C threats from the United States. If China is then put in a position to believe that the United States can manipulate gravity and is piloting UFOs, then it would have to take assets, their most intelligent, their money, the resources, natural resources, everything you can imagine, away from those very real threats from the United States, and then invest massively in how do we obtain control over gravity? How do we guard against that? What kind of systems of defense What way might we be able to shoot something down that can accelerate up to 100,000 miles an hour in a second? How do we detect something like that? Does it create some sort of a envelope in the atmosphere that we can see? And if so, by what means? Do we have to bathe the entire airspace over China with some sort of lasers so that we could see this envelope just in case these things come flying through from the United States? So in my mind, the biggest competitor to this being something real, something from, or things from another worlds, I should say, the biggest competitor is this, that it's a strategy to bankrupt, not literally, but to bankrupt competitive nations. Of course, Russia, the oligarchs there. China is probably the biggest threat that they're thinking about, because China's a real threat, Russia isn't. So that would be my guess. If it's going to be something much less celestial, it's going to be this, to get competitors to focus resources, precious resources, on defending against something that doesn't even exist. And if you could get your competitor to do that, and I'm going to tell you right now, there are, even though so many white people have been fired out of the United States government, they've been diversity firing away while they've been diversity hiring. Even though that's happening, they still have a lot of brilliant white guys in the military that do the war games, that do the planning, and they're not all gone yet. And this would be like 200 IQ actions to undermine. So if you could get a potential enemy, and they're all potential enemies, as I was saying, even UK, even Canada, there are friendships between little girls. There are no friendships between countries. There's a dominant country and then ones who have allied to it. And the country is really a vassal of the oligarchs that dominate it. So as I've said, it's like the lion, a wild lion that is a person's pet, a trainer's pet. And we, the population, are the fleas on the ass of the lion. So you can see how silly it is to say what the lion should be doing when we're just fleas on its ass. When the trainer gets to decide, even if he gets to decide, sometimes the lion decides to eat the trainer. So I want to hear your thoughts on what you think about that as well. And if these are alien craft, do you think there's really an uptick in these close calls, if you will? And if so, what might that mean? If there is an uptick, could it be because a new set of alien robotic probes or silicone-based life has shown up, and when they investigate something, they fly much more closely? Could it be that all of the alien species, if there are any that have shown up, that they have no interest whatsoever in trying to engage us, just here to take whatever they might need from the earth to be able to power their craft or what have you? What are your thoughts? Let me see. I'll take a quick look at Cash App and Entropy and Odyssey. All right, blank. We have over here on Entropy, JK160. Thank you, good sir. Financially gifting $3. He says, I want Western kind to explore space just like we explored the planet. In the future, we will need a Christopher Columbus for space. Yes, we will. That's magnificent. A big vision. That's what we need. And get out your raucous emojis and your 07s. A salute to No White Gill Clips. He hit the $20 mark with a financial gift. God bless you, brother. Said everything he had to say with those $20. And that guy is just active, constant, making it happen, financially gifting, making clips out in the world, making it happen. That's somebody you absolutely should get out in 07 for. All right, let me see what you all are saying in the live chat. Patrick of Southtown says, "Hails, Jason. Indubitably, I believe it is highly likely a ruse. Though, if it is true, any respectable aliens wouldn't be anti-white." So true. They are more than welcome to help us bring peace. That's right. Why don't we go ahead? I'm going to queue up this video, and we're going to see what it will show us. Is this the one? We shall do this.
Efforts engaging directly with our naval aviators and building relationships to help destigmatize the act of reporting sightings or encounters.
Can you all hear that?
And we work with naval aviation leadership to provide additional equipment.
This is
to
Bray
record any encounter
that I was
Navy
reading
and
about.
Air Force crews now have step-by-step procedures for reporting on a UAP on their knee board.
So
in the cockpit.
they're definitely talking
And,
about
in their post,
now there is a
flight
procedure put in
procedures.
place for reporting
The direct result of those efforts has been increased reporting,
UAPs.
with increased opportunities to focus a number of sensors on any objects. The message is now clear. If you see something, you need to report it.
This is
And
like
the
the
message
see
has been
something,
received.
say
In fact,
something.
recently, I received a
Saw an
call
alien.
from a senior naval aviator with over 2,000 flight hours. He called me personally
Let me
from
see
the
if we
flight
can.
line after landing.
This is not.
in
Get to
short,
some of the
we've
footage.
endeavored to bring-
If we don't see some footage here, we'll go to. Oh, this is the footage coming up. We'll go to a different video. All right, there it is. This goes by fast. There it goes. Did you see
There
that?
it was. That's, in many cases,
My God.
that's all.
See that again. Oh, darn it. And go back. Watch there again. It is like just this missiling speed right in front of this aircraft. No, they didn't show it that time, did they? Maybe this time. There it goes. Let me find another one. There might be a better one. Better video of it.
We will now turn to the business of this hearing. That
Funny seeing these Democrats and Republicans together interested in something.
all I can may or may not be.
No videos on this one. Here we go. Let's watch this. Nope, not that one. Which is it? Oh, okay. Do the post.
Yes, sir.
And then the number of contacts you got, get the course and speed meters off them.
Can you all hear that?
Just sped up to 46 knots, 50 knots, closing in. Oh, 138 knots. Fast.
That one's pretty much perfectly 000 relative, right?
Yeah.
263 at 3 miles, 55 knots speed.
I assume that was military personnel talking about the craft that they were watching on radar. So as you know, with the technology, video game technology, they can make anything look real. You just had this general think that a video game was real. He tweeted it.
Hilo ASAP.
So they can make anything look real on a screen.
Keep going, bro.
This is an example, I think, where it goes into the ocean.
What was splashed? Splashed. Mark bearing and range.
On May 17th, Congress held a hearing about UFOs. This is the first one in over 50 years. It's happening to collect and investigate reports that we haven't.
I think this is the
committee reports of UAPs.
We need to know
Here
this
we go.
phenomenon to be. We need to
Gillibrand.
know.
This is Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who led efforts alongside Senator Marco Rubio and Representative Ruben Gallego to include a UAP amendment in the latest defense bill.
What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on aliens in general? What are your thoughts on how we should handle it? Let's go back to a look at space here. Magic Window will help us out, and we'll see if any aliens show up while we're streaming, and we'll be going soon. So give me your thoughts. Why aren't more people talking about this? Is it of any concern for the well-being of white people? Is it real? Could aliens be observing the entire time? Different species of aliens watching us? Would they watch us just get obliterated? I think they would. Just like if we went somewhere, we would watch as the animals, the life forms on that planet waged predatory conflict on each other. Jack is here. Steve is here. Todd is here. Apollo. Jilly is here. So is Ardent Party is here. You got to tag me. Caleb is saying, Jason, do you have some inside information? I'd share it. I would let you all know if we were about to get invaded by space aliens. But you got to tag me as No White Gill, because I just scroll through this. And if you're putting just Jay or Jason or whatever, then I will miss it likely. Brandon says, come on Jeff Doherty's channel sometime soon. Sure. Have him send me an email. Since I was there once, he must have my email. You all talk about this alien phenomenon? Kingdom of Vinland writes, the strategy you described is what the U.S. did with the, quote, Star Wars missile defense program in the 80s, although I'm not sure if it's fake one way or the other. Oh, to say that it existed, or to imply that it existed so that the Soviet Union would have to waste a lot of money and resources, human resources, natural resources, etc., on something that didn't actually exist. It's a brilliant move if you can convince your adversary to waste all of that on a ghost. Julie says that my scenario about it being a 202 IQ take. Thank you. About it being one country trying to bankrupt others is the most reasonable one. Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. And there's a part of me that wants it to be craft from other worlds. I want to believe that that can happen. And because if it can happen, that means we can do it. I've always been of the mind frame that if another human being can do something, I can do it, maybe better. And of course, that's not literal, but if you have that attitude, then you can accomplish much more than you would have been able to without that attitude. Saying everybody else can do X, Y, or Z because this much better or that much better. They have more height or they have more whatever. It's always just an excuse to lose. So I want to believe that it's possible, and to leave the cradle of or what we believe to be the cradle of our people, to be able to leave it and move on to a new world or worlds. I mean, it's just staggeringly fascinating. But at the same time, we have to be realistic. And the odds that it's some effort to undermine China and others is very high. So others are saying, yes, PSYOP. Sweet Carlisle says the volume is good. Well, thank you for the feedback. Lockie says splash sounds fun. Well, I wonder though, the people who are participating, like the pilots, well, I wouldn't, maybe not the pilots, but the ones who are looking at the radar, they would probably not be aware that it's a ruse, because you would want to get the real response out of them. And you want to have as few people, I would imagine, the way they would do it is you want as few people as possible aware. If it's a ruse, you want to have as few people as possible that it is a ruse. I think the possibility of there being like conversations taking place, I think this is just such wild nonsense that you shouldn't give it another thought. Like alien species coming and they've sent some emissaries over. I mean, come on. If that's true, then it's too big for it to matter for you or for us. So, but it's not true. Even the possibility in reality here, like our scientists have speculated that the way we would communicate would be through mathematics, that might be the only way to communicate. But I think not. There might be no way to communicate because we don't even know what they'll be made out of. We don't even know what a thought would look like in their heads, or if a thought would be in their heads. Why presume that they would measure and number things the exact same way that we do? I get maybe there's just a hope there that they would measure and number things the way that we have. Caleb says these people have lied so much it's really hard to believe anything they say. Brandon says, oh, that was come back on Jeffrey Dordish. Yeah, absolutely. Slots is here. Great to see you, brother. Are you one of the aliens? To the anti-white narrative. Yes, we are the ones outside of the anti-white narrative. Absolutely right. Arden Party says, my bad, good evening. Was in lurk mode. I actually wrote a piece of Star Trek, was a fan fiction a few years ago that dealt with the aftermath of First Contact and how a priest felt. Oh, how about it? It's very interesting. Now, of course, there's no reason to, whatever your faith might be, if God created life here, nothing to hold his hand elsewhere. But the concern about the religion being abandoned is tangible, it's real, because if the religion and the religious leaders didn't say there absolutely are these other life forms and they will be coming around X time or whatever, then there is an absolute loss of faith. It would be wide enough to undermine many religious organizations. Patrick says, I wonder if the aliens can manipulate the gravity within the ship like they do to fly in order to adjust to the pressure changes when they submerge in the ocean. Yeah, you would have to be able to manipulate gravity. You'd have to be able to create your own, well, at least as far as we understand it. And you would have to be able to create your own envelope to travel inside of. Because, yeah, you would not be able, if you were a living organism. So that's another thing we are presupposing. That it would be something like us or something that you would find on Earth. Even the things that you find on Earth and the way we understand life here, if you were to just take that and transplant it onto some other world, I mean, you might have half the gravity of Earth. You might have double the gravity of Earth. What would that do to life over time? What kind of creatures would that make? What would that do to intelligence and the way things are thought in the brain? Of course, there would be what we would consider a brain, because it would be life in this example from Earth. But what would it end up doing to it? Yeah, and as far as that goes, the reality is we do a lot of presuming that the other peoples think the exact same way we do. It doesn't mean that it's not necessarily the case that they think the exact same way we do. It doesn't mean that one's better or worse than the other. It just means that there is a presumption there, and that is built into our cogitations. Party says, I'm an unconvinced atheist, but I'm very much in the spiritual mindset. Oxymoronic, but it is what it is. I think agnostic, the problem with atheist, if I understand it correctly, is that ultimately you have a faith that there's nothing. And if you have faith, then that defeats the point of being atheist. So I think the agnostic view that you don't know, maybe yes, maybe no, don't know, is probably the way that most people actually feel who call themselves atheists. But I can imagine coming across an atheist that has faith that there's no God or no creator or nothing that we would give the name God. Alien drones. Yeah, popcorn power. It's entirely possible that everything on planet Earth that we're seeing are drones, and that if there are organisms that are anywhere remotely similar to us, they could be who knows how far away. And if these things are drones, and you think about robots, it just from our point of view, and again, I stress not to attempt to understand a space alien species by way of ourselves, our experiences. It just strikes me as extremely foolish. But if for the point of a thought experiment, we say that it is somehow similar to us, you could see a probe being, a drone being a little more indelicate. So I know there was a story of, was it a Korean, what was it, a 707 that was flying toward Alaska and claimed to have, or Japanese, I think, and claimed to have a spacecraft fly up beside it. Let's say that for sake of this conversation, that happened, and that it was something built by an alien species and it was on Earth. if that were some sort of a drone, I could see it making the mistake of seeing this thing and then pulling up beside it. And I say mistake because there's a supposition sewn in there that this intelligent life from elsewhere would want to keep its distance. It would just want to observe. And but I could see a drone pulling up beside it, just discovering that the thing is not a life form flying, but instead a inanimate object that is being flown by life forms, and then pulling away, if you will, from it. A lot of these contacts happen like that, where these claimed contacts, they pull up together, pulls up, kind of like has a look, and then takes off. Apollo is here. Morning Sky Fire. Elaine Sabatino says, Hails, great takes as usual. Thank you for that. The anti-whites will find a way to destroy white well-being, Jason. It sounds like another fake way to unite the anti-whites. It's entirely possible. That's why, just like I'm saying here, probably the most powerful thing, even though it's the least exciting thing, but it's realistic. Just as the sublunary excuse to this is that the United States is faking this to force all of its adversaries and all of the other countries on planet Earth, not just the adversaries, but to prepare for conflict with a country that has the ability to manipulate gravity. They could be doing the exact same thing to us. What is the likelihood of a resistance to an anti-white oligarchy that controls gravity? Well, we are not in a position. The logical choice there, since we are not in a position to even remotely begin to investigate how we might defend ourselves against technology that can control gravity, we must act as though it is false and move forward with the tools that are available to us. Some of us, I think, were clearly built or still for the jungle, to be able to operate in the jungle. And most of us have, by way of living in the nursery room and the horrible wars that killed off so many of our greatest men, and the terrible choices that the vast majority of women make when they decide which men are going to reproduce, they've just reproduced us into this soft creature that can no longer understand the jungle, but believes that the nursery room is the real world. So I think there is the number of us that can still understand and operate in the jungle is far smaller than some might think. Sloth says we must always act as if there is a chance, even if there's not, and always in a way where attrition is less harmful. Yes, well written, brother. First Lady of the American Theater is here. So ultimately, I think, we have to act as if this is fabricated and that it's aimed at China and Russia and Iran and the UK and Germany and Canada. I'm driving the point home of what the jungle is actually like, and then operate as we have been, spreading white well-being, bringing people over to going free so that they can access their true latent abilities, infusing society with our dialectic that puts the conversation in our story. This is the 201 IQ defense against what has been done and what is being done to Western kind, to all Westmen, men, women, and children. Because the alternative is to get mired in a pastime, a diversion to what's really going on in the world. And none of the people that are here want to end up searching for Bigfoot. And we'd like for many more of our people to get away from the search for Bigfoot. At the same time, it sure is fun to think about the possibility that I don't, and let me say this for the folks who might be, because there are people who will definitely be really afraid that these are crafts from other worlds. They represent, are piloted by alien species, because they'll look at the superior technology. They'll think about how superior the technology has to be to what we have today to be able to traverse space and reach Earth, and to be able to fly undetected seemingly when they want to be. And they'll become very afraid. And to them, I'll say this. There's always a sliver of possibility. It's going to be infinitely smaller than the other things that can kill you on Earth. You are infinitely more likely to be killed by a ricocheting boomerang picked up by a tornado in Kansas, irrespective of where you are, that then hits you in the head and finishes you off. The likelihood that an alien species is going to show up and enslave the Earth is just beyond infinitesimal. The possibility that there are and have been alien species that are at Earth or have come to Earth, who knows exactly what that is. But what we can say is if they're there and they wanted to be finishing us off, they'd have been doing it. You've got nothing to worry about. And when you worry about things that are not pressing and are not tangible, that you have to take steps for, you'll just eat yourself up with fear. So don't become the kind of person, I just is my advice, don't become the kind of person that when something scares you, you immediately conclude it must not be real, or it must not, because that closes thought down. Instead, I would recommend, especially for the men, but for a lot of the ladies as well, that feel so compelled, that you take the mature Aristotelian, Baconian stance that there are things out there that we don't know, things out there that we don't understand yet, forces, etc., that we don't have tools to measure with yet. Maybe we will at some point. And that logic would state that if things have shown up, that if these things are real and they're craft from some other world, that these things would have already been taking control. And it would have been a long time ago. No reason to think that it's just a brand new thing. The world has given its signature that it can support life as we understand it, carbon-based life, has given its signature out to the universe since it became that environment, since it became that Eden. And then when we develop technology, radio signals and the like, we've been beaming that out into the cosmos at light speed, 186,000 miles per second. All of those signals are out there. Those are much less, I guess, of our technology, much less important than the signature that the world, Earth, is a place that can support life, carbon-based life as we understand it, because that's been bouncing off of Earth as a product of the sun's light forever, as far as humankind is concerned, mankind is concerned. So they could have seen it a very long time ago. And in fact, if there is a they or them, so many people want to be called like they and them now, don't they? Is that weird? Maybe they're the aliens. But maybe you all remember, or at some point in your youth, I'm going to speculate that you walked outside, you looked up at the nighttime sky, and you saw the countless stars, and your mind took flight. With my white friends growing up, that was a ubiquitous experience. It wasn't the same with my non-white friends, but I'm not saying that they were less, just different. But with my white friends, it was almost, I guess it was in every single one of us, maybe to varying degrees. But to just look up at what we don't know yet and want to know what's there is a really beautiful part of our spirit. And so we shouldn't shunt that or ignore it in any kind of way. We should approach it in a mature way, the way our heroes have always done when confronted with the unknown, and say, prepare ourselves in the best possible way that we can, and then say, whatever comes, we'll deal with it, and we'll be ready when it gets here. The real Vincent is with us. Hello and welcome. All right. Let me check what you all are. Have any aliens flown up on the magic window yet? How many people have magic windows that can just tap into the cosmos? I think I will see in the future. We can check if the magic window can just tap us right into maybe other houses. Only aliens have magic windows. Popcorn powers. Uh-oh. We've been caught. We're going to head for the border. That's funny. Slots. No, it's an actual magic window. All right, let me see if there are anybody else before we get out of there. Okay, Cash App. Blank. Entropy. Didn't miss anybody there. Tall Kevin's in the Tall Kevin widget, where exactly he should be. The aliens are here to collect their award. A Nigerian prince called them and said they won, but first had to transfer 1 million space dollars to them. Well, of course. That makes perfect sense. All right. Odyssey is a blank. Let's see over here. Karvaki has a little, it is like a little flying saucer. And it says, do you believe? Battle Cat's over there. Now, I think it's safe to say, I think the only mature position, seriously, is that there is an infinite variety of life. And I think that's actually really beautiful as well in the universe, in the cosmos. And that it spans from the simplest forms to extremely advanced compared to us, and that it is in I want to say forms or shapes, but I'm not just talking about like the body, the sack that it's in. It can be composed, the atomic structures that compose them could be completely incomprehensible to us, but it would be in such dynamic variety. And because that's what we see on Earth, so why would it be any different elsewhere? I just think it's got to be that way. And if we travel and we investigate, then it's likely that other intelligent entities and organisms do the same. And if you think about, if Western kind was not burdened and diseased with anti-whiteism, where would we be today with technology? I think you know the truth. We would have spaceships already. Now, I'm not talking about flying off from one solar system to the next, but I mean, Alpha Centauri, how far is Alpha Centauri? Is it like 4.5 light years or something like that? There are theoretical concepts for the propulsion systems on spacecraft that, at least in theory, and if Western kind puts our mind to it, would be able to travel at some percentage of speed relative to light speed, and be able to return to Earth. So conceivably, we could have already been building spacecraft, and I believe we would have. So look at when we developed flight, and look at that short time we were in the space shuttle. I mean, that's a blink of an eye. So where would we be today if we weren't infected with anti-whiteism? What kind of scientists would our people have created if we weren't infected with anti-whiteism? If all of our resources, our time, our intelligence, if it wasn't all diverted in this forced way to harmonize the diversity that is never harmonious. It always needs to be harmonized at our expense, at our dollar, at our genius. Where might we be today? I think that it's easy to say that we would have far more of our health concerns conquered. Far more of the health concerns of killing you or killing your loved ones conquered, defeated already. That would mean that you would be healthier longer in life. We would have, no doubt. People talk about and they complain. I see these memes. They're like, we were promised a flying car by 2000 or something. We would have had it. Come on. We would have built that stuff if it weren't for anti-whiteism. We can't build. I mean, look at SpaceX and how that had to come about. I mean, these things now, with anti-whites in charge of so much now, with this infernal ideology of anti-whiteism, eating away like just this acid on our bodies and souls and governments and institutions. The fact that we can accomplish anything is amazing. But if that wasn't active, institutions, the type of economy that we have, the type of governance, already I'm convinced that governance would be completely different. It has been, when we recapture our destiny and our historians look back, they'll be able to say that when anti-whiteism gained whatever percentage in the population and percentage of domination, that was it. Everything stagnated for however long. No more progress. Look, we still have all of these big achievements, these scientific achievements. Have you looked? Like, do you know when they first developed plasma televisions? I mean, this technology is all old. I mean, white people were figuring these things out. They were on the drawing boards. They were in their garages, and they were building things. Not, of course, not just white people, but we have built quite a bit. And we're still living off of that echo. And regrettably, I wish it could be as simple as okay, well, we're not in control of our destiny anymore, and then like everything breaks. None of the washer machines break anymore. None of the TVs work anymore. That would be great, but that's not how it's going to work. No, things will work for a long time. This corrupt government in the United States and in our countries across the West, they will work for a long time. Throttled, stagnated, mired as they are, they will work for a long time. And there won't be a sign that, oh my God, it's all changed. Unfortunately, it's all just fallen apart. Regrettably, it doesn't work like that. They can live off the echoes for a long time, a very long time. So we've got to continue with what we're doing to reach people where they are and tap into that potential that we have in our race. And then who knows? Maybe we end up flying around the flying saucers and watching the rest of the earthlings, the rest of humanity, have out their wars, have out their whatever it might be. Let them just live in peace or in war, whatever they want to be, because we can remove ourselves from the trammels of the viciousness. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and roll out here, unless something else comes up. Was this Rizwog says, time to start living our best lives now, right now. Let's go. Yep, living my best life, going free, and battling anti-whiteism all the way to the end. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. You know, think about what's the opportunity cost. That's the thing that sometimes really gets to me. We've given so much time. We've been forced. We didn't give it. So much time to all of these other pursuits, punishing ourselves for being white. It's staggering to think of where we would be. And with that, folks, I have enjoyed the conversation and look forward to seeing you. Let's see. I don't know, maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow we'll do a roll-in, or Friday. Certainly, we've got to set up a tap and then certainly be back on Sunday for Going Free, 5 p.m. Make sure you're here. Tell all your friends. Tell all your friends to show up, because we're going to be talking about going free and taking back. Could you imagine if there was a government in Washington that was white positive? If there were contact with aliens from other worlds, we would tell folks. We would tell folks. All right. Until then, roll out.